Hello and salutations, it's me, Salty. Welcome back to 2 Cents Toys, and today, as the title suggests, don't throw away your G.I. Joes. Today, in this video, which I hope to be the first in kind of a series of videos, I'm going to show you a couple quick fixes for G.I. Joe, replacing O-rings and getting rid of paint, things like that are kind of fast and easy. In the next video, I'll be doing things a little more complicated, like replacing missing limbs or kind of customizing them a little bit. Like Steamroller here, I'm going to do something for his hand. Before you see kind of a variety of different things that I may or may not use throughout this video. I just kind of grabbed everything I thought I might need. Got some needle nose pliers, replacement O-ring, filled head screwdriver. I used these in the Luke Skywalker video, which people had asked what they were officially called. They're called mini triangular craft swabs, I guess is the official name for them. I've got some plastic sanding needles. I have a new paint pen that I'm going to try for Destro. It's supposed to be liquid gold. I like the Malto chrome pens, so I'm going to see if that's kind of a gold equivalent or not. I haven't really found one. I have a little bowl of rubbing alcohol just to see if I can get some of the paint off him, and a new O-ring because he's a little bit loose. A lot of these kind of videos already exist on YouTube, like replacing O-rings, replacing arms, things like that, which, I'm kind of just adding a needle to the stack of needles, so to speak. But I'm going to try and consolidate as many of them as I can into one video, so that way it becomes more of a one-stop shop sort of deal. But I think what we'll do first, since he'll take the least amount of effort, is Destro with this new gold pen. This particular Destro is from the Iron Grenadiers. He's supposed to have a kind of vac metallized gold head, and you can see mine's kind of rubbed off into a silver. I'm going to hope and pray that that is more of a kind of chrome gold, I guess, for the lack of a better word, and maybe bring some life back to this. If it's not, he's already pretty beat up, like his cape's pretty bad, his little loop here for his sword broke off a long time ago, his paint's pretty worn, so if it doesn't end up looking perfect, at least he'll have a gold looking head to put on the shelf. And we'll do that first, because Steamroller is going to be a little bit more involved. What I'll be using is a deco color. It's called Liquid Gold. Based on the color here on the pen, it looks like it's supposed to be a really shiny gold, but I really don't know. I've never used this brand before. I don't know anything about it. I left the price tags from Hobby Lobby on all these items so you can kind of see how much I paid for them, and clearly got them from Hobby Lobby. We're going to give it a shot and hope for the best. Now, there's two ways that we can do this. You can either unscrew the body and take the head out and kind of work on it independently, or you can just take the pen and, if you're confident in yourself, kind of take the pen around the head and try not to get it on the rest of the body. But that's why we have a filled head screwdriver. I'm going to take the head off, just that way I feel like I might be able to work with it a little better. It gives me something to grab onto at the bottom. For those that don't know, to take apart a G.I. Joe, they have a screw in the back and they're held together with a rubber O-ring. So, find a smaller Phillips head, put them in the back. Screw pops out, and you gently just kind of work your way around and pull the torso apart because you don't want to break the pegs inside of it. You can kind of see there on the bottom the gold that it's supposed to be, sort of, but just through play where the gold's kind of flaked off and left the silver underneath. I'm not going to pull him completely apart because I have done that before and the capes come out, and that is a pain in the butt to get back in, so I'm just going to kind of leave him like that. So there's a better look at the gold that's supposed to be up at the top of the head. I guess I'll give this a few shakes and we'll try it out. Worst case scenario, I just buy a new head. It's not the end of the world. Alright, let's start making some marks. The hard part that you're going to encounter here is the fact that you're kind of putting shiny on shiny, so it's really going to be difficult to see what you've hit. I'm sure you could probably, sand off a lot of the back metal if you really wanted to, but I'm going to try and leave as much on as I can, because I really don't want to kind of ruin what's underneath it here. And already, it's not perfect, but I think it looks pretty damn good. And as you might have guessed, the Malto, I don't know how it's pronounced, but the Malto Chrome pens are actually really great for fixing kind of Destro's paint along his head and all that. It's very illustrious, I guess is the word I would use. It shines really great. So if you're trying to, fix that, then that's what I would recommend, is a Malto Chrome pen. Eventually you're going to paint yourself into a corner, so it's good to have something like pliers to kind of hold on to the bottom of the head so you can not get fingerprints all over it like I just did. But, just go back over them. It's not the end of the world. Buff out or fill in or whatever word you would like to use, I suppose. And like I mentioned, it's kind of difficult putting shiny on shiny to see what you've hit already, especially since there's kind of residual gold left on his head. But, just kind of try and make sure you hit as many spots as you can. So that way it's at least somewhat uniform across the head. And I think we're about done here, at least with this one. And the silver kind of shines through a little bit in some spots, Like I may have to do a couple coats on this to get it perfect, but I think that's a really great start, especially compared to what it looked like before we started. You know, a couple more coats maybe and it'll be perfect, I think. So I think that looks pretty good. And while I wait on Destro's head to dry, we're going to move over to Steamroller here, who I got secondhand and someone decided to try and make him bloody, it looks like. Maybe make him a casualty of some sort. But you can see he's very loose with his O-ring, so we're going to replace that first, which just like Destro, you know, Phillips head screw in the back. Again, we gently pull the chest apart, being careful not to break any of these pegs that are here. And this is the part that makes a lot of people nervous, is feeding the T-section and the O-ring through the pelvis, because these crotches tend to break. So just go slow, and they'll come right out. So I technically don't have to replace this O-ring yet. It is not snapped, but it is very loose. You can see how it's kind of aged already. And then you just go in reverse. Take an O-ring, fit it over the hook and the T there. Now this O-ring is kind of the wrong size. It's a little too thick, but it's what I have. So I like to take the O-ring, kind of squeeze it and feed it up through there. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll take a pair of pliers just to kind of catch the O-ring and kind of pull the legs through. I know that probably made some people nervous, but that's just the way I do it. It's easier to me and less frustrating because sometimes these come unhooked and it's just a pain in the butt. So you take the back piece, which has kind of the big center peg, feed that through. I like to pull on it a little bit and feed it down into the grooves there at the bottom of the waist. And then I put the arms on, all while kind of putting pressure on it like that, because if you lean it forward, it's going to come off. So then I put the arms on. Sometimes they're tight enough to kind of stay on their own like that. Then I feed the head there. Oop, arm popped out. That happens from time to time. This is kind of the nerve-wracking part. And then I like to put it, you can see how it gets nerve-wracking so quickly. And then I like to take the chest part and kind of put it over, like that arm is giving me troubles. So I'll pinch it between, you know, right there where it's supposed to be, and then kind of hold the head in place, and the other arm popped out. You see how this can be kind of nerve-wracking at times. And then once I get them kind of pinched up at the top, if I can finagle my way down there without popping that arm out. There we go. And then just kind of push them back together. Now, if you were to say like drop him or something, then it'll come off and it'll come apart again. But for the most part, there's enough tension there to kind of hold it together. Feed the screw back into the back and screw it back in just until you get resistance. Because if you keep cranking it, even though it's already in, you're going to strip the top of that screw. He's a beater figure. You know, he's going to be in the cockpit of my MCC anyway, so not loose anymore. So here with my rubbing alcohol, I'm going to take some of those cotton swabs and try to get some of this red off. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to use the sanding needles. Get a little bit of rubbing alcohol, and we'll just start rubbing away here and see if any of this stuff comes off. It's coming off a little bit. This is why I like to buy broken Joes. You know, you can save yourself a little bit of money and you can always fix them up. Kind of nervous to take that red out of his eye, that I might take the real paint, but here we go anyway. Nothing else, I'll just make him an eye patch. You can see it's working a little bit. This rubbing alcohol is taking off wherever this red paint was. Maybe it was nail polish or just, you know, acrylic or something. Lord only knows how long it's been on there. And when I make the next video, I'll be using Steamroller again, and you'll see the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, like, you know, buying a beater figure gives you a chance to play around and kind of mess with things a little bit. That's working, but I want to try something. I really want to try these out and see if I can get any kind of faster progress. I want to see if maybe scratching the paint off will move faster. So we shall see. Probably won't be able to get all the red paint off because some of it is really down in there, but we'll see. We will see what happens. What happens if I use some rubbing alcohol to kind of loosen this stuff up and then use the sander to kind of break it apart. Kind of experimenting a little bit. For most people, this steamroller probably would have gone right in the trash with all the paint and the broken arm and everything, but I'm not one to throw things away unless I absolutely cannot save it. Like it's 100% beyond saving. I will not throw a piece of a G.I. Joe away. I will do my damnedest to try and bring it back to life or give it a new purpose. Like I said, he's my MCC driver, so you're really not going to see him anyway. So this isn't the end of the world for me. These aren't too bad, these plastic sanding needles. I think I'm getting a pretty decent use out of them. Now, making an appearance for us is the 82 Flash. This is what's called a straight arm Joe, and that the elbows only bend at 90. There was no what they called swivel arm battle grip. You know, he's a little bit older, clearly, broken thumbs. He's going to show you how I mentioned earlier that Joes can mostly come apart. Now, it's the same construction, You have the screw in the back. His screws are a little rusty, so I'm gonna have to work with that a little bit. You can pop these into like white vinegar and it'll take most of the rust off, but I'm not too concerned about that. I imagine most of you watching probably already know that you can do this stuff, but this is for the people at home that don't know that they can do this stuff. And I'm not the world's topmost authority on G.I. Joe or anything like that. I do know quite a bit about it in fixing Joes and replacing parts and the like, but I imagine the world's top authorities would be, like Ron Rudad or Larry Hama or Michael French from Retro Blasting. So there we go. And this shows you the construction of earlier Joes. The arms were on these kind of like cylindrical like circles, and same with the heads. They didn't have the up and down kind of pivot yet. All they had were these little discs. So that's where the size of the O-ring kind of matters, because sometimes these thicker O-rings that you can find, when you put an arm in, the rubber band will kind of crash into it and kind of pinch it and puts a lot of stress on the center column. And we carefully take this apart, because this is an 82 crotch piece, and once these break, they're not hard to replace, they're just expensive. This is just for you at home, like, because sometimes G.I. Joe's yellow, like Storm Shadow's notorious for it, Cobra Commander, because these are two different sections of plastic, so sometimes you'll get like one section that is yellowed and the other isn't. Each leg has a Phillips head screw on the inside, and so all you have to do is unscrew those. I know, surprise, right? Who would have thought? So again, these are kind of rusted, and you have to be really careful, because there are times where if you try to fight it and it's not budging, you're going to strip the top of it and you won't be able to get it out. You'll have to use like a rubber band or a drill or something. And I have varying results with those. The rubber band seldom, if ever, works for me, and the drill, I've never gotten that to work. So here on the knee, I kind of separate it a little bit, like that. Oh, that one just popped right out. That was easy. This is like if you experience a broken T-hook, because sometimes these T-hooks do break. So this is how you can get it off to replace it. So there's one section of the thigh, and there's a peg that runs through the knee, and I just kind of gently go back and forth and just kind of wiggle it out slowly, because you don't want to snap that peg, which I really hope I don't on camera. That would be embarrassing. There we go. So you can see there, that's the peg. You can kind of see some of the weathering that's happening to it. Sometimes these pegs will snap off inside the knee, and then you just have a separated knee, and that's why, like, if you can find a pair of legs or just a leg, you can replace the calf and you have the leg, or, things like that. So most of these parts are replaceable independently. Things like the arms with the rivets, I'm not sure how you would get those out without cracking the elbows or, breaking the plastic at all. I do have a video coming up where I experiment putting rivets into the arms. I have a Black Major build-it-yourself G.I. Joe, and I haven't found any videos on how to do that, and the information out there on the internet on how to get these rivets in the arms is sparing and kind of stretched across a lot of different websites. So I haven't found anything concrete that someone says, yes, this is how you do it. I've sent an email to Black Major and been like, hey, what do I need to do this? And that emails went unanswered. That kind of gives you an idea on taking them apart. And I know this video is a little unorthodox. I'm trying to fit as many kind of questions or FAQs or little quick fixes that I can into one video. It's probably gonna be a series of videos where I'll do more in-depth things like using Milliput to replace crotch pieces and thumbs and the like. But I kind of want to knock out the most basic ones in one video as much as I could. Okay, and one final kind of quick fix for this little video. I know Doc looks like he's pretty good. I mean, there's a little paint rub and all that, but thumb's good, crotch is good. Like, there's no cracked heels or anything like that. He's a little dirty. But there's another kind of common problem that sometimes you get when you get a G.I. Joe, and that's crap, kind of crammed into that foot peg there. Sometimes people put them on figure stands, the peg breaks off, or off of a vehicle. Sometimes it's dried, putty, what have you. This is, again, for anything in this video, there's many ways to skin a cat, as they say. This is just the method I do to kind of get that crap out of there. I get a little hand drill, and I just slowly kind of start digging it out. I make one hole, go up a size, make it bigger, or sometimes if it's really in there, like I'll make a hole and then I'll get like a little screw and I'll just screw it in there and I'll take pliers and try to wiggle it out and pull it. Sometimes you have to be more aggressive, but I like to do the little hand crank first. The thing you want to be careful about, especially if you're going to do the screw method, is if you try to force something in there, there's a good chance that the seam on the back of this leg might crack, or you might crack the heel. That's why I like to do this method first, like The screw method to me is a little more aggressive, and that's if I'm kind of at my wit's end here. And if you're wondering why I'm muted, or there's no sound coming out when I'm not talking, it's because this thing needs some WD-40. It's very squeaky, so I'm trying to spare your eardrums. You can see we're kind of making some headway here. Since we have a bigger hole now, I go up a bigger gauge. And there we go. We have a new foot peg. Well, these were our 3 patients for the day. Destro, I think, turned out really well. You know, the gold on his head isn't perfectly shiny, but I think it's better than what I started with. And then Steamroller, I got most of the red off of him, so I'm pretty happy about that. And then Doc, who was kind of a surprise guest. You know, we got that thing out of his foot, so that's good. In the next video, you'll see his knees kind of loose, so I'll probably cover loose knees in the next one. Thumbs and crotches probably. You know, then we'll cover what to do about this, which is that requires a little creativity at times. So I thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions about G.I. Joe repair or any points of advice you'd like to share in the comments, please feel free to do so. You know, I'm always wanting to learn more about repairs, things like that, like the perfect gauge O-ring or, you know, things like that. Or if you know anything about rivets, please let me know in the comments before I break anything. Now, I hope this video was helpful. Maybe you have some Joes lying around that can use a new O-ring, or so if you didn't know before, now you know you can replace them, because not everyone collects G.I. Joe, not everyone knows these things. If you did know these things and you stayed this long, I appreciate it. But that's all I got today, so thanks for stopping by, and until next time, I'm Salty, signing off.